Hey guys, this is IntroducingEmy, and we're back with another Redline Tuesday, though this is going to be more like a Redline Wednesday because I was nearly done with this particular drawing and I just lost my pen and my computer froze and deleted the whole recording. And I'm not too happy about that, and it hasn't done that in forever, and I don't know why it happened, and I'm really upset by it. So I'm going to show you what I've done, and to kind of make up for it, I'm going to do some work on the background, I guess. So I'm going to go over the background a little more than I normally would, just because I don't have a whole lot left to do, and it's, and I'm not redrawing this, so you just don't have to deal with it. I'm not happy to say the least, though. But this is an original character based on a pre-existing species called the Circles. And I did a whole spiel about this in my first recording, so I'm just going to keep it short. The Circles are a fantasy species created by a Japanese furry or anthro artist. And the big things I wanted to concentrate on... Oh, by the way, the person who drew this, their name is James, but beyond that, they didn't give me any contact information, so I have no other way to promote them, but that's fine. So... the big thing that they wanted I don't know if they wanted a more dynamic pose, or at least they wanted it to be dynamic. And one of the things I did was the back was a little twisted here. Like the butt was sort of turned up, so you could see both cheeks, which I think even with the legs in this kind of bunny hop pose, you wouldn't be able to see this other side. You would just see the profile with the tail, and that'd be it. So, but just for funsies, rather than draw kind of the same leg twice, it gives it almost like a medieval drawing kind of look, because that was something you would see a lot in old medieval monk manuscripts, is kind of this replicating, with horses, you would just see the same leg replicated twice. So just for funsies, to make it a little more interesting, I brought the other leg up. So this one is just leaving the ground, and this one's up. I did, when I was getting ready to re-record this, I did kind of give it a look over. I think I'm going to make this part of the leg just a little bigger. Yeah. So I think that makes the silhouette at least a little more interesting. I also, I did a little repair work on the tricep going into the bicep, into the forearm, which was a little balloony, or it didn't feel complete. I also tried to realign the spine. So this is actually this shoulder. I moved to right there. I lowered it. And I also, in my first video that I recorded of this one, I explained that this is a fantasy race. I don't know a lot about them. So I'm just kind of making up the anatomy as I go. Probably couldn't do that, though, with your fingers, huh? I keep putting that soft eraser on, and I'm not sure why. So, I was just trying to, make this hand look amazing, and my computer decided, nope, and deleted the whole record. Oh, I was so angry. I swear I'm not, making an excuse or something, but I was one unhappy pappy. I basically just turned off my computer and went to bed because it was the last thing I had to do that day. I had a whole bunch of packages I had to get together, and I packed a whole bunch of stuff, and then I was like, oh, I gotta do my Redline Tuesday and get it up, and did not happen, and I was exhausted. So the last thing to do pretty much is the face. These fingers aren't perfect, but they will do, I think. I'm just trying to kind of give you some different options here rather than just redrawing it. If in a perfect world, and I stated this again in my first video, in my first recording, I would have done a pose coming more towards the camera. I'm not even going to bother trying to draw it, but that's something to consider. You always want to like kind of push yourself, but it's fine. Like, I remember when I was younger, a big thing was it was so stressful to even do one drawing of a character and make it look decent. And so I would invest everything into like one drawing, you know. So like if this was my character, I would have drawn this and been like, well, no, I want to see the whole body. I want to see it from the side because this is how I want to see this character and stuff. Because it would have been so frustrating to try to draw it again. And I kind of had to like just learn that art is a huge time sink and investment. I shouldn't call it a time sink. That makes it sound kind of like a waste of time. I guess some people drawing is kind of a waste of time, but yeah, so let's I'm trying to think like where the other side of this face would be. That's the other thing, this head is maybe a little more turned. Yeah, maybe not. It's a little hard for me to tell with these circles. Nothing against the circles, but I'm not, I looked up some model sheets of them to try to get more familiar with them, but I'm not overly familiar with them. Just a little detail. I would maybe shrink, either open the eye wider so you see more of the sclera, which is the white of the eye, or make the pupil and iris smaller so that it gives it a more intense look. I'm also not sure like how their eyebrows work. Something like that, maybe. I do realize this is kind of like a ribbed socket of some kind, like a scaly, fleshy eye socket. So, I don't know, something like that. And then they've got this little, like, skin right there. And then let's see, the tongue is kind of flying off to the side here. I'm going to lift it a little bit so that, see how it creates this like parallel right here to this wrist. In my drawing that's kind of gone, but I'm still going to lift it up just to show you, again, options. Things to think about. And then, so this eyes here. So this ear would probably be a little more forward. Again, I don't know what their like ear anatomy is. If you guys want me to draw like these fantasy creatures more to a certain like on model, I would recommend sending me like a quote-unquote official model sheet of them or something, because otherwise I'm just gonna kind of skirt their fantasy anatomy and do my own thing. By the way, just a little thing that I wanted to share with you. I was playing around with redline'd the other day, which is the I don't know what you call it. I guess it's kind of like an app. It works in the background of Photoshop and helps correct my lines. I don't know if you can see it on camera. I'm looking right now. I don't think you can, but there's like this little green thing dragging behind my brush that's kind of like helping me find, or helping my pen tool move in a more smooth way. It smooths out my lines, keeps them from looking so shaky. But anyway, I recently discovered that it comes preset to work with certain brushes within Photoshop, like the brush, and this, I think like maybe the stamp tool or something, or the pen tool. But you could set it to work with any of the brushes, and I didn't know that. And I always wished it would work with my eraser. And I finally got to work with the eraser the other day, and I'm so happy. Right now I'm experimenting with like a fractal setting to do like plants and stuff. His teeth are kind of misaligned, but we're just gonna go with it. Okay, I'm getting a little too, I'm getting a little too like, ooh, let's just start shading things. Okay, let's do the tail, and then we're gonna do the background. Sorry, I get a little like hypnotized with shading things. So for the tail, I would actually, I would do this pose, but rather than have it lifted up so high, which is kind of a sign that an animal is going to use the bathroom, I would maybe sink it a little lower. Let's make sure that the tail curves down. There's also this like tuft of fur that's kind of like, and it's sort of sticking out of the side of the tail. I'm not sure why that's there or what that means, but that's fine. Nah, I would even go lower than this. I actually extended the canvas just because sometimes I need that. Sometimes a girl needs an extended canvas. I would actually like maybe curve it down. If this is something that like maybe circles don't do, then sorry. Like I'm doing it. So let's do like that. And then let's move this over. I hope I don't have an obnoxious laugh. I'm always like, yeah, I would do something more like that, like to show the energy of the jump, and then you can add your tail poofs on, your furs. Something like that. Okay. So then we were going to do a landscape here. So let's try to assess the original. I believe that this is like a grassy knoll, and he's about to assassinate the president. No, but I do believe it's like a grassy like field and like a little pond. Maybe he's like going for something in the water. So I feel like this is not a great apology for the fact that I couldn't record the whole thing, but this is going to be the best I can do. And to be fair, the original episode was looking a little slow anyway, or not slow, the opposite of slow. It was too quick. It was a very quick episode. I was getting it done like a lot faster than I thought I would. So when it comes to natural landscapes, I generally don't do perspective lines unless it starts to get a little too overly complicated or something. But so we have some things to be concerned about here. We have this long parallel with the tail and the spine, or in the original drawing, this curve. And the idea of having the horizon fall right at that like parallel is a little not so good. So I think a way, so let's draw that parallel. That's our character. So that's our guy. So I think a good background would be something that crosses like this, which is the object he's leaping from. And then below that you would have the water. because he's not really in perspective, it does sort of limit some of what I can do here as far as like how wild we can get with the background. But the other thing I would do is I would, if you want to keep him in a field, can you hear me scratching my forehead? I'm having a think. So let's make our backgrounds a little more dynamic. And the reason I'm putting these lines in is like, we want you to be like drawn to the face and drawn to the legs, which is like the leaping. But we want to stay away from doing straight ups and downs, especially if you're not like doing an interior environment. Like, I draw a lot of interiors for my comic and stuff, like buildings and stuff, and unless you like turn the panels and kind of have characters going off at different angles, it's a little hard to get away from that. But with nature, you can kind of get away with anything you want. So let us see what we can do. So I'm trying to find a color that will stand out on its own while I suck on my bottom lip. Is this an okay green? Yeah, we can see that, right? So let's have a hill. I'm getting a little distracted by the one in the background. Let's have like a hill coming down to like the water's edge, something like that. And I noticed in the original, there's, I think this like little bit of brown in here is supposed to indicate kind of like a lip of ground. So we'll try to account for that. I think I'm also gonna like put a rock in here where like the ground has started to erode away from this. Maybe even put some like little lily pads. Or since this is like a fantasy creature in a fantasy realm, maybe you could put in some plant life that looks a little foreign. I'm also gonna maybe put like one hill crossing down like that. I think this also kind of gives it a little more like of an action-y feel to it. Could maybe even curve it up more like that. Just busting out like a thicker oily brush here. Oh god. My computer just made a noise, you guys. I'm like all terrified now my computer's just gonna like bust down and be like, well, time to freeze again. These are not like the most beautiful looking. Get rid of some of this noise around the character. And let me turn up the fade on that a little more. Let me saturate it a little more. Oops, I don't want to erase that though. Okay, sorry. So, other thing to do with like backgrounds is, again, I was mentioning like the plants. I'm using blue and green, so I apologize. It was supposed to be like water and rocks and stuff with the blue, but we're gonna get adventurous. You could maybe even By the way, when I'm pulled out this far from a drawing, my line correction tool has trouble line correcting. You could even like put a bush out here in the foreground and make this darker. Yeah, let me go back to my oily brush. Oily brush, please. Oops, that's the eraser. Pretend these are leaves. So you could like put a bush there and maybe have that same bush replicated over here a little bit, just to show that this common plant that grows there. I hate when people like put stuff, like especially like plant stuff, they'll just put like one, and especially like there's this like fern that I really like that kind of has like that, like, and they'll put like one leaf somewhere, and I'm just like, no, you gotta do a whole bunch more. They grow up big old groupums, you know. So I get all like meh about that. But when it comes to drawing grass, Lord have mercy, messing up everything today. When it comes to drawing like plant life and stuff in the distance, it's gonna just basically look like noise. It's not gonna be like very defined. It's like if you go and look at really old paintings on landscapes, and like when you look way off in the distance, you won't see like every blade of grass defined. You'll just see kind of like noise in the distance, and it will be lighter from atmospheric perspective. And then as it starts to move closer to the foreground or the subject of the drawing, usually, I don't have any good grass brushes. I got a few in here. I guess I can, you'll start to see it have like a more definable shape. So I realized like this is more advanced level stuff, but I'm just trying to give you some things to think about. Now, when it comes to getting close to the character, I would try not to overwhelm the character's area of the picture with grass. I would kind of... It's a little hard to do without digitally painting this whole thing, and I'm not that good of a person to do that whole thing right now, but I would try to not invade the character's space with too much... too many blades of grass and too much detail, because then it starts to like lose a little bit of focus. Some grass coming out of the water here maybe, or put some cat o' nine tails. I'm gonna draw some freaking cat o' nine tails. And then, of course, over the water, you would want to do like a reflection of him, her, it jumping. And the reflection will be tighter and more detailed near to where the character's body is over the water, and then as it gets further, then we're gonna bust out this blending brush, which I still need to do a tutorial on. I had some people asking about it, and it's a little big for this. You wanna kind of break it up, fade it away. So I can only tell you how to do these things digitally, and there are ways to do this with traditional media. I am not super good at traditional media, especially anymore since I've pretty much gone wholly digital. So you would kind of need to go look up tutorials, I think, on how to do some of this stuff as far as how to like replicate some of these techniques in a non-digital format. My apologies. Also, just as a little side thing, I probably wouldn't define the edges of plants and whatnot in the foreground like really sharply. I'm kind of doing it sharply just because of the kind of brushes I'm using here, but I think in the final piece I would probably like go in and like, yeah, see, I'm using like way too huge. My smudge tool's huge right now, but I'd probably go in and like fade this so that it helps put focus back on the main character. I'm gonna make this a little darker, just a little easier to see. I'm gonna knock the saturation down because it's a little intense. So yeah, this is like some things to think about. I hope it was at least semi-helpful, and I'm so sorry. I am so sorry, you guys. But the first, I swear I'm not like lying or being a cheaty snake or something, and like I was like, oh, I'm just not gonna show them the circle. They'll never know, because like I actually was really I was pretty tired. I was pretty low energy when I was drawing it, but I was still having a good time working on the circle. Oh, wellsies. Anyway, so I hope those tips are at least semi-helpful, and hopefully next time it won't be such a lackluster display. But I will do some more anatomies. I believe the next one is a girl, a woman, a female body. So we will be working on that. And yeah, so keep sending your red lines in. I'm probably going to do a live red line at some point, meaning it's either going to be live on YouTube or live on Twitch, and then I'll put it up on YouTube. If I record it on YouTube, it's just going to be on YouTube. So I'll probably put up more information about that at some point. I kind of have to find an artist who will let me do it with their work live, get their approval, and kind of find the piece I want to work on. It might turn into a really long thing, which is why I'm even edging it to begin with. So yeah. When we get closer to that, I'll mention it. But anyway, keep sending your Redline Tuesdays with the subject, the email subject Redline Tuesday, to Emy, E-M-Y, dot, which is a dot, Emy.Bittner@IntroducingEmy.com. You can find the email address below in my description and all over my YouTube home site. And yeah, all right, cool. I will see you guys next time. Bye!